So we got everybody, but Julie just disappeared. She was there. There she is. Are we ready to go? Lisa, are you good?
Ready to
Shelley?
go.
All right, I'm going to start. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting for October 13th, 2020. This is a hybrid meeting. Our board and members of the district administrative team are participating in a hybrid meeting as there is currently a requirement on group sizes in an effort to limit the spread of COVID-19. As a public body, the Lake Bluff Board of Education is subject to the Illinois Open Meeting Act. Prior to this meeting, a public announcement was posted on our website announcing various participation options, including asking questions ahead of the meeting using a Google form. While the requirement of the Open Meetings Act have been relaxed during the global pandemic, the members of the Board of Education take the responsibilities as board members who are responsible to the public no less seriously. Leanne, could you please call the roll?
Barry,
Present.
Marzen,
Present.
Charlot. Yes. Gotchall,
Present.
Haig,
Yes.
Duran,
Present.
Hill. Present.
All right, we are present. We have a quorum. We can begin, and we're going to start with our pledge. So if you all join me and look over our board secretary's shoulder to the flag and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we will begin, as we always do, with public comment. And I'm just going to put a few parameters down before we start either reading or having live public comment. I wanted to thank anybody who is waiting to speak. I appreciate you coming. We will allow public comment at two designated periods, once at the beginning, right after I lay this out, and once also at the very end of the meeting. So you do not have to get your thoughts out right now if you choose not to. You will have up to 5 minutes to speak. You will be timed, and you must yield the podium when your time is up. The figurative podium, you lead your Zoom podium. When you speak, please state your name and address prior to making a comment. The board and administration will carefully consider all public comments, but not respond or engage in discussion unless glaring factual errors are made. Comments requiring follow-up will be noted and addressed by the administration, either directly or publicly on our website. Anyone with additional comments can always contact the board or administration by email. Our email addresses are on the district website. Our board secretary, Shelley Goff, will read any written comments first, and then we'll announce the next live speaker. So Shelley, if you want to give us any written comments, and then we'll go from there.
Mark, I'm going to start with, we have public comment from Lane Bennett, but she sent in a written statement, but she did say that she was interested in joining. So I'm going to reserve her comments until she raises her hand.
Okay.
So Lane, if you're interested in joining, if you will raise your hand. So I will start with the first written comment by Vanessa McCabe. Can we reconsider in-school teaching versus e-learning at school? If we have everyone wear masks and stay 3 to 6 feet apart, can we have in-person, all kids in the classroom learning like before? The next public comment is from Scott Weber. Teachers and staff, thank you for the hard work you have put into remote learning this year. The teachers have been able to capture the students' attention via Zoom in a way that I did not think was possible. I have been encouraged at the teacher-student interaction, but amazed by the student-student interaction. The class has created an environment where they can learn and share with one another. Most importantly, my child has learned as much in 6 weeks as I had expected by winter break. Please continue the great work and let the parents know how we can build on this together. The next public comment, one second. Lindsay Bornholt. e-learning platform is something that should be commended. However, I would really like the format to be changed so that in-person learning is taught by the teacher in the room, and the remote learning, mostly asynchronous, or with different teachers that the district hires. There are other ways to make the education equitable amongst in-person and remote. Please get these kids off their computers all day. I just had another one come in just moments ago, so 1 second. This is from, she just has Catherine from Lake Bluff. I can't even see the last name. Thank you to the school board and teachers for your commitment to teaching our kids through this time of adversity. My son loves coming to school and learning with his peers. Thank you for keeping them safe. The precautions you put in place have been effective in stopping the spread when presented with cases in the school. Much appreciated. That's all for the written portion.
Okay.
And I do see that there are 2 people with their hands raised. And one of them is Lane Bennett, so I'm gonna. Okay, she should be on. Lane, are you, make sure that your computer is not muted?
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, hi. Thank you. So I am probably just going to reiterate what those first few comments were about getting students off the screens while they're in school and back to live teaching. And, you know, last week, I know they came out with some new, you know, data, again, getting back to screen time in the kids, how it leads to, like, you know, just sitting, higher BMI, diabetes, anxiety, headaches. I mean, the list goes on and on. And, you know, I think that we as a school district have done an amazing job putting together this e-learning platform. And I don't just want to leave it there. I think we need to, like, maybe start another task force to see what we can do the next trimester, getting the kids who want to be in school off of the screens and in school for live teaching. I mean, we have followed the guidelines above and beyond. It's been amazing. And I just think it's time to get the students back to live teaching. Their future health is at stake of it. You know, this is going to be like a lifelong thing if they're sitting at this computer all year. I just don't want to end this conversation now. I think we need to keep it going and see how there are ways after we get the data back from the survey that Lisa just sent out, because I know, you know, space is another issue too. There's just so many things that are coming together, and I just don't want to, like, put a stamp on it and say this is it. So, and I know, like, Vanessa had the first question that was like, and I'm speaking for like I'm speaking for so many people who just, we don't want it to end. We're doing a great job. We want to find the space where we can do this together as all the stakeholders can come together, come to terms, meet with agreement, and figure out a way to get these kids off of the screens, live teaching. I know we can do it. You know, that's really what it is. And I know too, maybe if it's with the teachers union, you know, I don't know how did the board, can I ask a question too? And can you guys answer within my 5 minutes? Oh, no, I can't answer questions. Okay, so I don't know how the board agreed to the e-learning platform without asking the other stakeholders, the parents, and the families in this district. That wasn't even, do we have any other options besides this? So that's my other question. It's that I know that you and the teachers union agreed to it, but we never had a say in it. It was just, I guess you went to the board and asked them, and they came up with a couple ideas and they ended up on this one. But I don't feel like in the summer too, I don't think any of the parents, which we're all stakeholders, we knew about it. And I feel like a lot of people didn't even know about those task force meetings, you know, so I'd like to really say, let's start another task force on how we can get the kids in school back to live teaching. And if I have anything else, I might come back later at the end, Mark, like you said I could.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have Stephanie Rickmeyer. 1 second. Stephanie, you can go ahead, just unmute your microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I am Stephanie Rickmeyer and I am at 512 East Scranton. I'm actually coming from the opposite perspective in that my children are remote learners, so I've had plenty of opportunity to see firsthand how well the remote platform is working. I've been really impressed with the amount of instructional content, the individualized attention. My kids have spent a lot of time actually talking and having differentiated instruction with their teachers, and even more like peer socialization. I've seen my daughters doing during a virtual recess drawing with some of their other friends at home, and that has been fantastic. And I've been really impressed with how the teachers have been managed to provide that from the remote platform. And I wanted to say thank you to the teachers and to the administration for all of the hard work it took to make that happen, and actually also for making the hard decision to make the remote platform a standard one. Because without that, I feel like remote kids would have been at best a secondary afterthought compared to kids sitting right in front of the teacher. Like, it's human nature to pay more attention to someone who's physically in front of you than someone who's not. And to keep everybody getting the same amount of differentiation and attention from the teachers and the same amount of instructional content. And I've heard from friends in other districts that do have a totally separate platform for remote as in person. And a lot of those remote people feel like it's not equitable or fair. So my decision to stay remote, which I am planning to do next semester or trimester, has had a lot to do with the fact that I do feel like my kids are getting a good education and learning well at home. And so my ability to stay home and save more in-person space for people who need it, that decision would have been a lot harder if the remote platform was totally separate. At that rate, I would have felt like I had to make a choice between my kids' education, keeping up with their peers, and their safety. For me, I have appreciated being able to protect both with the current platform. And that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Anybody else out there we need to talk to?
I see
So
a
we will,
hand.
all right, we will revisit comments at the end. If anybody watching would like to comment, remember you need to go to your participant button and raise your hand, and we will recognize you at the end of the meeting for more comments. So we will move on now to, as we do, let's see, the opportunity for board members to offer an agenda item for a future meeting or to raise a brief discussion item for this evening. Anybody would like to offer anything, please do so now. Not hearing anything, we'll go on to our reports. This evening, we're just going to have a president's report and a superintendent report. President report is, as it has been for the past several months, having to do with the 2021 school board elections. A reminder to the community, school board elections are being held on April 6th of 2021. If you are interested in running for the school board, your applications are due December 21st of this year of 2020. That's coming up in 2 months. On October 21st, that's next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., the school district, along with Vote Lake Bluff, will be co-hosting a Zoom meeting. It's an informal question and answer to learn more about our roles and to ask questions about what is required of being on the school board. So if you have any interest at all in running for school board, we suggest you tune into the Zoom meeting. We'll have 3 board members, plus our superintendent there to ask questions, along with at least 1 person from Vote Lake Bluff online, and we will keep it as informal as we can and cover as much territory as we need to answer all your questions. We will be having 4 open board positions in the next election, so there is plenty of opportunity to run. We encourage taxpayers from all varying demographics to consider running, not just parents. I would like people to know that this is meaningful and rewarding work. You can have an opportunity to make a difference in your community. And for more information, we do have a link on our website, and as well as the Vote Lake Bluff website. You can get more information about what it takes to run for school board. And with that, that's my president's report. Dr. Leali is going to add something in her report.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So just a couple of quick items for this part of my report. The library book fair at LBES and LBMS are excited to announce that it is coming soon. The dates are October 26th through the 30th, and there are multiple ways to shop. Virtually by clicking on the book fair catalog on our main page, lb65.org, by shopping at the Lake Forest Bookstore in person, but you have to mention the book fair, or shopping the bookstore online and picking up curbside from the store. Unless you opt to shop at the store or pick up from the store, all books will be delivered to the school, and you can find more information on our website about that. And then the only other item that I wanted to follow up on was a board question that we had last month, and I'm going to pass the mic to Jay to kind of give a brief high-level answer to that question.
Sure. At the last meeting, when I was presenting the budget, Julie had asked a question regarding the percentage increase in the IMRF and Social Security Fund. And that was due, as I expected, to just a mix of employee. We've replaced our teachers retirement system employee certified staff with a non-certified employee. So their pension goes into the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund pension. Then we've also budgeted for additional health aides, which are non-certified as well. So those pension and Social Security contributions is causing the increase in that fund. And it's just such a small fund relative to the education fund that those few people make a big percentage change difference.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate that.
So that is our reports for this evening, and we're going to move on to our discussion items. The first item is the IASB Delegate Assembly discussion. I imagine our board members know what I'm talking about, but I doubt anybody watching has any clue what we're talking about. The IASB is the Illinois Association of School Boards. That is our professional organization that provides training and guidelines and research for all things school boarding in Illinois. They have a delegate assembly meeting once a year in November, in which case all of the 800 plus school boards in the state meet and vote on issues that we would like the Illinois Association of School Boards to advocate for on our behalf at the state and sometimes even the national level. This is school boarding in its most purest essence. It's a very high level. It's not getting into the weeds at all. It's not always the most exciting stuff, but it is is advocating for education and students in the state of Illinois. This year, we have until the actual delegate assembly is on November 14th. So between now and then, we have 2 more meetings. So we don't have to cover all this tonight, but I just wanted to bring it up and highlight it so that we can talk about it, because at the end of the day, I am your delegate representative to the assembly, and I need marching orders to go to the assembly with our board's votes on 8 new resolutions, what they're calling 3 reaffirmations of existing positions, and 1 new belief statement. There is a new resolution. So we need to either, as a whole, the board, to support or oppose each one of those 12 items. There is and just super briefly, for anybody watching, there is a resolution on what's being called a loan program that suggesting that IASB requests that the state of Illinois establish a low-cost loan program for public school districts. The program will allow local dollars to flow more directly to students while providing relief to local taxpayers. By the way, the details of which are all in this board packet for the community or board members to dig into in more depth. There is a resolution on gun storage that one district is hoping for legislation which strengthens child safe gun storage laws in the state of Illinois. requiring gun owners to store firearms, whether they are loaded or unloaded, in a securely locked manner, if a person under the age of 18 is likely to gain access to the weapon without permission. There is a resolution regarding school report cards that would direct the Illinois State Board of Education to prepare and disclose all available school report card data for the current academic year by June 1st of that year. I understand that that can be problematic because most schools are not out by that time. There's a resolution on pre-K teacher licensure, allowing for some changes in the way pre-K teachers are licensed. There is a resolution supporting efforts to direct the Illinois State Board of Education to expand the issuance of provisional teacher licenses in all curricular areas because teachers are hard to come by these days. There is a resolution to allow e-learning as a substitute for a holiday on election day. There is item 7 is to allow more local, item 7 and 8 is to allow more local control during the pandemic. There is 3 reaffirmations having to do with charter schools. And there is a position statement that they are recommending having to do, where is that? Let's see. Oh, belief statement, sorry. Let's see, urges member districts and leadership of member districts to integrate the principles of equity and inclusion in school curriculum, policies, programs, and operations, ensuring every student is welcomed and supported in a respectful learning environment. So I'm not going to dig into that any more deeply today, but I would ask the board to come have read through this by our next meeting. And if there are issues, if there are resolutions that you do not want to adopt the IASB's recommendation, because underneath every resolution, there's an IASB recommendation. What they're recommending, how we vote. If any one of you wants to take an issue and debate it and try to make a different decision, we'll raise that at the next meeting. And if we need to go to 2 meetings to do that. So I think that's as far as we need to go. If there's any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I think that's probably enough detail for now. Not hearing any, we'll move on. And Dr. Leali is going to give us an update on returning to learn.
Great, thanks, Mark. So thank you first and foremost to our teachers, parents, community, and you as a board. We are in our 7th week of school, which seems hard to believe, and our teachers have been back at work for over 2 months. We have completely rethought school and worked our problem solving and critical thinking skills overtime. Our processes for learning are completely different, and yet our kids are the same. They are eager to be with us and connect in whatever ways that we can possibly provide. So as an update, we did send a survey out to our remote families, and we are in the process of looking through that data and determining our plan to hopefully begin close to the beginning of the 2nd trimester, which is about mid-November. At this point, about 65% of our fully remote families are opting to stay remote, and about 35% would like to come in for some type of in-person instruction. And so we are looking at meeting with teacher teams. There will be adjustments to our schedule to accommodate our students who would like to come and be with us for in-person learning. Some of those changes will be staffing. Some of our facilities will need to change. A lot of conversations are happening about classes and classroom assignments, and we are going to try as much as possible to minimize disruption for all of our students, and as well as providing the necessary and interested accommodation of being in person to those families who would like it, and continuing to maintain a robust remote learning platform for those who have opted to stay remote. So the earliest the change would be made would be November 16th. However, I'm going to be very upfront. Things have come up throughout the summer and throughout this process of designing new ways of organizing ourselves that could potentially delay that. But at this point, November 16th is our goal. But we will communicate our plan to families with as much detail and as much notice as possible so that they can look at making arrangements if they need to, alternate arrangements. I do want to take a minute and recognize that Much of the rest of this school year and how the school year goes depends upon the COVID cases in our school community. We do look at a range of metrics, all the way from the region that Illinois has assigned us to, which is Region 9, which includes Lake and McHenry counties together, as well as Lake County alone, and our zip code and school metrics. And we've been encouraged by the health department to really look at all those metrics cohesively, not to take one metric over another, but to really look at the whole picture. Their goal is to help us stay in person. Their goal is to help us keep going. And so they are working with us, as I've said many times, at least twice a week. I'm on a call with them where I can have my questions answered, but obviously if we have individual questions, they're working with us on those as well. So they are helping us to make decisions regarding any transitions between hybrid instruction that we are doing now and a full remote platform. At this point, a completely in-person experience for all of our students is not feasible for us. ISB is saying 6 feet where possible, but 6 feet remains the directive of the Lake County Health Department. And that means that we need to continue to have all of our students at least 6 feet apart all day long. And that is to minimize close contacts within the building. And so we will continue to adhere to that guidance. Additionally, the Illinois State Board of Education has mandated that every school district continue to offer a robust and rigorous remote option for parents who do not wish to participate in school in person, even for those districts who have that availability. Right now, being very honest, numbers in Lake County are not looking that good, although our zip code has stabilized in the last couple of days. We want to avoid, obviously, any kind of spread in our schools, and we haven't had it yet. And we do, like I said, we've now had the opportunity to talk through our specific plan with not only the Lake County Health Department, but also a member of the Illinois Department of Health and various medical professionals in the area. The plan, as it's being implemented now, has been commended as a very safe plan for students and staff to return to in-person instruction. However, we do recognize that we will most likely continue to be impacted by positive cases as we move through this school year. So as everyone knows, we have had a couple of cases and we have tried to communicate honestly and in a timely way with our families. The Lake County Health Department works with us to do contact tracing, and as many more schools come online and start in-person instruction of some sort, collaboration has become challenging at times between all the parties. Schools are as new to these conversations as anyone else, and we are all really trying to wrap our heads around how best to stay open and adhere to the guidance that we are obligated to adhere to. I really just want to impress upon everyone that I have continued to be overwhelmed with the level of kindness and respect that the Lake Bluff community has shown to our administrative team and teachers as we've tried to accomplish bringing students back to school in as seamless a way as possible. As you remember, that was one of our goals. We wanted this year to be about learning, regardless of where students had to do their learning. And we feel that the plan that we've been able to implement has provided that opportunity to students as they've needed to navigate between the two platforms. We also really just appreciate that from parents and community. Again, we'll just stress that we depend on the community to be partners with us. As cases emerge, our teachers and staff are understandably just as nervous navigating this new territory as well. We all go home to our families and loved ones, and I just want to make sure that we are creating as safe an environment as possible for our students and staff. So that is our update for now, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from anybody for Dr. Leali?
So I guess just the bottom line, keying off what the speaker said at the beginning about getting people back into a remote learning environment. What I'm taking away from this is that that option is available, but we can't accommodate everybody because of the distance requirements that we've got. That's a situation that you're sort of continuing to reevaluate throughout the school year, but as of now, that's just not practical. Is that sort of a good bottom line response?
Yes, as long as the 6 feet stays in place, that's going to be the obstacle that we're going to have to overcome in terms of our facilities. And like I've said before, we're looking at adjustments. I mean, we have to maintain open spaces. As we know, if a student presents with symptoms at school, we need to move children in that classroom to a clean space, clean out their space, and then move them back. And so there are facilities challenges beyond just having kids in a spot all day long that we need to make sure that we address. But that we've been looking at our trends, we've been looking at our data over the last 7 weeks, and are going to try to minimize the need for those and just kind of streamline those processes so we can get more students in. But yeah, as long as that 6 feet stays in place, that is the piece that's preventing us from bringing everyone back.
Lisa,
And there's potential. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious to get some information on how the self-certification process is going.
Self-certification has been good in terms of we have, I think we've had multiple days at LBES where all students have certified, parents have provided self-certification prior to coming to school, which is great because we don't need to conduct any screenings at school then. We do send home our daily reminder. We send an email for all students by 7 a.m. We start our calls by 8, and we start with students who get on the bus because typically they are traveling to us. They're the first ones to travel, and we want to make sure that parents have certified before they come to school. You know, there are some districts who, you know, when they open, they have created a situation where they temperature check everyone at the door. We have been able to rely on our parents to provide that kind of certification for us. That being said, we have definitely had students, you know, present with symptoms early in the day, and then we evaluate and have to have them go home as well as their siblings. So we still work on those processes and the communication around that just to make sure that everyone understands that that's something we need to do. And our nurses have been amazing. I can't emphasize enough. And currently we even have a substitute nurse that was able to work with our permanent nurse at LBES and was able to shadow her for a little while, and she's made a seamless transition into the position, which, to be honest, was a little nerve-wracking for me, knowing that we were going to lose a nurse in the first 2 months, but our substitute nurse has been amazing. So that's been a process that's worked for us so far.
Lisa, I have a question about the survey that went home. And forgive me, I just don't remember. Has the deadline for that passed? So are all the survey answers back in now?
Yep, so our initial deadline was the 8th, and we did extend it a couple of days just because we heard from parents that they hadn't received it for whatever reason. Sometimes I think our school messenger winds up getting blocked for whatever reason, and so we wanted to push it out a couple more channels just to make sure everyone had an opportunity to answer it. And so yes, at this point, the survey is closed.
And did we get a good response? Did most people respond to it?
Yes. Yes.
So now
Sometimes
moving
a couple times. So we've had to filter some of that, but yes.
So now moving forward, the Return to Learn Task Force that meets again tomorrow morning and every other Thursday will have the data that they need to work.
Yep,
move
I will
forward.
be providing, some more specific information about how many additional children we'll have at each grade, some preliminary thoughts about how we might be able to accommodate it, and obviously opening it up for anyone to share their ideas or thoughts around that as well. I also have another article that I sent out to the Return to Learn Task Force that was a Chicagoland survey that was done on I think it was every county in Illinois, just measuring parent satisfaction and just thoughts around remote learning around the state, just as a point of interest for us as well to discuss.
Lisa, I'd like to ask, I guess is probably a pretty softball question, but I think it might help some of the people watching with some of their questions is the Return to Learn Task Force. Can you explain briefly, for those who don't know, what does it do? How was it created? And what stakeholders are on it?
Sure, yeah, so we met the first time in June. We met prior to Dr. Sophie leaving so that she could give the group an overview of kind of how remote learning went in the spring and give us some idea of the challenges that the district encountered. The group came together, it seems like a million years ago now. Our entire administrative team is on that group. We have 2 board members on the group, Ann and Andy. We also have parent representatives and teacher representatives. And the parent and community representatives, I know that I met with PTO. Dr. Sophie had reached out, principals had reached out. So we have a pretty good cross-section. The goal was to get parents from who would represent various kinds of needs and student needs, so that we had lots of different perspectives. I think the group has around 35 folks that show up. We met weekly over the summer, with the exception of July 3rd or 4th. That weekend we did not meet. But since school has started, we've met every other week, and we will continue to meet. And the goal for me for that group was to have a group of stakeholders that I felt I could bring information to, and also bring plans to get feedback. So sometimes our meetings have been fairly loose, and just, especially now that school has started, our agendas have been a little bit looser of, just how are things going? Let's hear your feedback and thoughts. Early in the summer, it was more like, here are some of the things we're thinking about doing, tell us your thoughts. Sometimes information was presented to the group and people were asked to go out and get feedback. So there's been various different ways that we've done it, but each meeting has streamed live on YouTube. All the meetings are recorded and maintained on the website so anyone can watch. I think some of them have had over 400 views. So lots of people hopefully have taken advantage of watching those. It's a lot of information, no doubt, but each meeting was about an hour long. Now that we are meeting every other week, we're trying to limit it to about a half an hour as a check-in. And perhaps in the next couple weeks, we'll bump it up to each week or an hour, just depending on the need. It's been harder now that our teachers are working, so to find a time.
Thank you.
Lisa, I had a question also. So you said that you're looking at the changeover would ordinarily happen around November 16th. And that probably that may not be able to happen because you've got some challenges in terms of the number of kids who want to come.
Well, no, I mean, it's potentially that could be a challenge. There are also staffing changes that need to happen and conversations around that. Facilities need to change. There could potentially be some ordering that needs to be done with furniture and PPE, additional PPE. So we're just taking stock at this point of what we would need to do in order to make that change. And then obviously want to look for a good time to make that adjustment, depending on how big the adjustment is for everyone. So the goal is the 16th.
So the goal is the 16th.
Just anticipating, yeah.
I guess my question was, if parents are listening to this and wondering, what's that going to do for, people working or trying to manage stuff? If there are changes that would be made, when do you think people might know, or you might be able to tell people what to expect?
I would like to be able to present information that would be impactful to parent and student schedules by the beginning of November, to give people a couple of weeks to work through that information. If I can't give that information by that point for whatever reason, then I am not sure that I would stick with November 16th. I want to give parents enough time to adjust.
Okay. I think that's helpful for people to have a time frame. And obviously we all understand that it's a fluid, dynamic situation where the things that you're managing can change at any given moment. So.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate that. And I think the thing that we've, we all learn as we've been going through this. I think we have definitely had internal discussions about how and I've heard from a lot of parents as well too. I think people were very nervous about what this was going to look like. I know a lot of people were unsure of whether or not we would be continuing to meet in person 7 weeks in or 8 weeks in, which we are still able to do. Also, people were a little unsure of what that remote platform would look like. And so in many ways, a lot of our students and parents have settled into good routines and have made good relationships and good connections. And so I'm not sure that any one of us anticipated that that would be a sentiment at this point, that maybe we would still be feeling really disjointed and like things were still in flux. I think people actually have settled into some pretty nice and good routines. So minimizing disruption right now for students and learning is top priority with this changeover.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne.
And I'll just make a quick comment that having participated in the Return to Learn, and I've said this before, but just to say it again, just want to thank you and the administration, all the administrators for having such an open, transparent process, because I know you mentioned before that those meetings have been streamed live, available for watching after the fact. Some have hundreds of views, but even more than that, I mean, you allowed for participants even during those meetings to sometimes, not just the panelists, but for sometimes people attending as parents watching, to participate, ask questions. And this isn't hard data, but my estimate is probably hundreds of people over the course of time participate in those in some way. So I think there was an opportunity for parents to kind of talk about what they wanted, what they needed, hear the plan. And I just want to thank you for that, because that was the harder way to do it. And I think that you guys did a really, really good job.
Thank you. And I really am appreciative of a lot of the feedback that we got, even from folks who watched the meetings later. You know, would feel comfortable to email with questions or things like that. So a lot of time this summer was spent trying to address those. And that being said, I'm sure that folks still have that. And we're always open to the feedback, you know, so email, call. The question and answer session that we had a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, yesterday, I think, was also very well attended. We had, I think, over 50 parents on the question and answer session as well, and took live questions at that time. So looking to schedule a couple more of those as well, because I think that was well received. Once we have more information, we'll try to get those on the calendar more often.
Any other questions for Dr. Leali on this, on Return to Learn? So why don't we move on to our discussion item 7C, our introduction to equity and inclusion.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for a minute, because I just have a really short presentation, and I appreciate the opportunity to just very high level begin this conversation. I know that this has been something that Mark has brought up a couple of times. It was something that we discussed as a board when I was being interviewed about, you know, this topic of equity and how the community has changed over time, and just that this is something that the board is interested in discussing and moving further with. And so I appreciate, again, you know, it's a very busy time, and so this is going to be very quick. I did send you all an article about kind of rethinking and just kind of taking this opportunity while things are in flux to kind of rethink systems and processes and just kind of see where we can get better in terms of addressing the needs of all students. But I did want to just take a minute to kind of outline what we mean when we talk about educational equity. And so just putting some very broad generalization to this is that when a district is seeking equity for all of its students, there are some cornerstone ideas that the district is thinking about, or the school. And many of these things we do in great ways. So I don't want to diminish the fact that our teachers and administrators in the past in Lake Bluff, I'm sure, have spent some time and talked about ways that they can do these things. So these are just kind of guideposts about that a conversation on equity should be centered around. One is just valuing student differences and their unique experiences and journeys within the world, outside of Lake Bluff, inside of Lake Bluff, and just kind of the different kinds of connections that they hold dear to themselves and the people they love. So when we talk about equity, we talk about addressing the needs of the whole child. We've already talked about this, right? Social emotional learning and making sure that we're checking in with students, not just academically, but also about how they're feeling, about how they're perceiving their school environment. You know, research is very, very clear on the impact that it has on achievement when a student doesn't feel safe, when they don't feel that they belong, when they don't have their basic needs met. And that is a basic need of human beings, is connection and feeling valued. So that we're addressing that, that we as a system would continually analyze and challenge kind of systemic or structural aspects of our curriculum, and identify, when we can, areas that may be hindering all students' opportunities for deep learning. So just that we strategically and systematically take a look at our curriculum materials, resources, instructional time, our delivery methods, every kind of aspect of what we want students to know, understand, and be able to do, and how we address that within the school system, that we would continually be asking ourselves, are there things that we're doing that we aren't even aware of that might not be helping some of our students, that might instead be creating some obstacles or barriers? That we would obviously, and we want this, we know we want this in Lake Bluff, that we would be providing all students with an excellent education that allows them to collaborate with other learners. I know that's already a pillar of what we do here. And that we're seeing all students as capable and accomplished learners who are constantly building and reinforcing their own identity and agency. So when we talk about classrooms that are student-directed, when we talk about listening to students' interests, listening to students' thoughts and opinions, helping them evaluate information, to synthesize that information and create their own opinion, those are aspects of a district that's looking to create an equitable experience for their students. I'm going to try to get to my next slide here. So this is a visual that is sometimes used when we talk about the difference between equality and equity. So in that first image of the baseball game and the kids behind the fence, we're just kind of assuming that if we give the same supports to everyone, that will be fair and everyone will be treated equally, and that will feel good and that will be helpful to everyone. But obviously we can see that there are some students that don't benefit from the same supports. The second one just sort of realizes that everyone's at a different height. They all need different supports. The end result is the same. Everyone can see the game. And in the third image, we're talking about, again, like removing barriers. So if we just kind of take a look at the fence and the obstacle or the hoop or whatever it is that kids need to get through to get to the learning or to get to that outcome, that if we remove that or change it a little bit, we might not even have to provide different supports and things like that if we just kind of take a look at, are there issues in our system that we could address to remove some of those barriers? So I just kind of like this image because it feels like it's easy to understand. And when we're talking about seeking equity for learners who are different, we're talking about different in a lot of different ways. Race and ethnicity, obviously, but also ability, neurodiversity for sure. Students all think differently and have different abilities in terms of their interests. Gender, and making sure that all of our opportunities are addressing both genders and how a student identifies in terms of their gender. Socioeconomic class. So there's lots of different ways that we can look at making sure that every student feels a sense of belonging and feels that their community is really embracing them as a whole person in all aspects of who they are. So just broadening our lens to include a focus on all different kinds of students. And so some next steps that we might consider as a district, this is a good next step, just kind of opening the dialogue and starting a conversation as a board, as faculty and staff. We know we have some teachers who are very interested in talking about this and moving forward in this work. We want to engage our parents and community members in this conversation, and most importantly, we want to be talking with our students about what their experiences are in our school system and outside of our school system, if they've been in other districts, if they've had experiences that would help to inform how we analyze and how we address any issues that we're seeing in Lake Bluff. Determining what we believe as a district and community about equity, and then finding or allocating resources to support our continued learning. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean money. It could mean, professional learning opportunities. It could be different ways that we solicit feedback, but just creating that consistent feedback loop so that we're always listening to our community and hearing whether or not we're hitting the mark. And then finally, just investing in our system to ensure that everyone has access to the full range of opportunities that we are able to provide to our students. And that is our mission. That's what we want. So, this conversation really does just begin as a conversation and just kind of hearing folks' thoughts and opening the dialogue so that our community knows that this is something that we want to invest time in and want to talk about. And with that, I'd like to open it up to any thoughts that anyone has at this time.
I guess I would start with what's the baseline? Do you think that we have equity issues in Lake Bluff? And if so, along what lines?
I think the answer is I'm not sure yet, because I haven't had an opportunity to really meet and discuss this particular issue with teachers and parents and students. So I think the answer is I don't know, and I want to hear more about it from folks, because I don't have a pulse on the baseline just yet.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I'll be interested to hear what your, research into that reveals. I also liked what you said at some point about soliciting student feedback. I think, I've long been a proponent of soliciting feedback from all the different constituencies, and I like the idea of having a year-end or semester-end opportunity for the students to give feedback on their classroom experience, their teachers, what's working, what's not. When I had kids in the school, they'd come back and they definitely had ideas, and their friends definitely had ideas. So I think that kind of feedback could be very, very helpful. So I like the idea of doing that.
Thanks. I think it's super important. Students are really insightful. They have good information to provide.
I have a little bit.
Yeah,
go ahead, Andy.
Mark, go ahead. No. Okay. I just want to thank you.
Go.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for starting the conversation. I think it's really important that we are talking about this as a board. I think it's important that, frankly, every group of leaders in the community is talking about this. I think it's a long time coming, and thank you for starting it. I will say, as I've thought about this, given the just even recent events in our society, as I've thought about this in my own organization, I realized that, what's holding my organization back is my own lack of skill, experience, and whatnot in this regard. So I think we all, to some extent, at least for me, I know that I need to learn more and do more as a leader. And sometimes, what holds me back is just time and whatnot. So, love to hear about as we proceed with this, whether it's getting research or having further discussions or even doing something more broad than that. Are there resources that need to be provided? Is there staff member time, dedicated to this? I mean, those are just some of the quick questions I have. So not for today, but just, something to think about or answer for down the road.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I had two points. One is to Julie's question about what is it about the baseline and how does equity or inequity reveal itself in our community? Without doing a lot of deep diving, one super obvious one that comes to mind because of the pandemic is technology. We had to supply how many hotspots for kids in our community that do not have access to technology? So that is an example of structural inequity that we've done something about already, but that's just a real simple one, but there's lots of others. I would also like to think from a very high level, as we progress in these conversations, I would love for board members to be thinking about our next strategic plan. And is equity a pillar of a strategic plan, or does it make sense to be part of that someday in the future? Not suggesting specifically anything, but keep it in the back of your mind.
I just like to add, I think it's an admirable effort with considerable challenges. The obvious inequities are there for all of us to see, but I think it's some of those that are not quite as obvious. I mean, with my own kids who learn, and all kids learn at a different pace. Sometimes a substantially different pace. So how you address that inequity, I think is also very important. So I'm glad to see this getting the attention it deserves, and I'm excited to work toward a good end.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, you're bringing it forward for the district to do some thought and some work on this topic. And, Mark, I think it's probably a good idea to keep the strategic plan in mind as a place where that might be, we may have a goal or two to address that.
Concur with what everyone has said too. I don't have anything to add, but I appreciate you starting the conversation, and I think it's an important and valuable one. So thank you.
So what does this look like though I'm sorry, moving forward?
Yeah, so I was just going to say thank you. That was a good segue because I've also made connections with some other neighboring superintendents who are also interested in beginning this work. And NSSED has done a lot of work around equity and is happy to help us kind of facilitate as a group of superintendents and their neighboring districts that are close to us that we articulate with on a regular basis anyway. So as superintendents, we have designated a couple of other administrators. Tracy will be serving on the NSSED Equity Council. And so we will kind of be working together as groups to figure out what are good ways to address these conversations and to start the work in each of our districts, and what can we do together, and then what needs to kind of be homegrown in our own district based on our own needs. But the first step is really just learning about the issue and really gathering that baseline information and starting to have those conversations. And so I have already put the word out to staff for sure, putting it out here tonight to the board. And probably a next step will be to look at, how can we put together some focus groups? How can we gather some information from parents and community members on this issue and how people are feeling, and then obviously student focus groups. So just so that we can get a handle on it while we're working together with other districts and with some guidance and leadership from NSSED to formulate that plan for moving forward.
Anybody else have any questions? Not hearing any. I'm going to ask Shelley, do we have any other written comment to read? We're going to go return to public comment. Any other written comment?
We have not received any additional written comments.
And do we have any, I don't see any attendees with their hand up. So no live comment? Any comment from a board member? So I think that's it. Dr. Leali, are we good?
We are good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So may I have a motion to adjourn at 7:59 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Hill,
Yes.
Duran.
Yes.
Haig,
Yes.
Gotchall,
Yes.
Charlo, yes. Marzen,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes. So we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Yep,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.